Well, good morning, Dr. Snell. We want to say thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. We know that you are very busy, so we really appreciate your time.
That's really my pleasure. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much for being here. To start off, we wanted to talk a little bit about you. And we know you have some history in Vancouver Public Schools. Could you chat a little about your journey from teacher to now superintendent?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I started my career here as a math teacher at Fort Vancouver High School back in 1996. I had finished up my college in Boston and then was looking for a teaching job, and a friend of mine told me about a math position at Fort. And so I moved out here. I was single, didn't have a family or anything at that time, and really started my professional journey at Fort. And so spent 7 years there teaching and coaching, and really loved my time there. And then had an opportunity to be an assistant principal, and so served at both MAC and Fort as assistant principal, and then had the privilege of being principal for a number of years. And really just kind of grew up professionally, got married, had my family all through those years, and so Vancouver's always been really special to me. When I was as principal, I realized that maybe I needed to think about what did leadership look like at different levels, and so I started going back to school and learning maybe how to be a superintendent. And then I spent 10 years in Camas as superintendent and deputy superintendent until this opportunity came up to really, in my opinion, kind of come back home, it feels like. So I'm excited to be back.
So back in home, like you were in Camas, as you say as a superintendent, and you say you feel like back in home. There is another reason that brought you back to VPS.
You know, the students and the families, number one. Like when you have an opportunity to serve families and students the way I did for 15 years, watching them come from sixth graders all the way up to graduation, you know, they're really near and dear to my heart. And so I've always thought, you know, that at some point maybe I'd have the opportunity to come back to Vancouver. Vancouver gave me so much, so many opportunities. I learned so much that, you know, I want to give back and hopefully help a district kind of move forward.
And what are some typical job duties that you are now experiencing as a superintendent? Some things that happen daily or that you look forward to?
That's a great question, and I tell you, every day seems to be different these days. I think there was being a superintendent pre-pandemic, and then now there's being a superintendent during the pandemic. Often I try to get out and try to meet with staff and talk with students and just see what's going on. I think I have a responsibility when you're in charge of 20,000 students and 4,000 employees and all these neighborhoods, and these families are giving us their children. I need to know what's going on across the district, and I need to listen. And so a lot of my time is trying to listen and understand opportunities for us to grow, and recognize places that we're doing really well, and have those conversations. That's probably the favorite part of my day. A lot of my other parts are spent in meetings or responding to concerns. Lately, it's paying attention to what's happening with public health and trying to be an expert on that so I can help our district make good decisions to keep people safe.
So you mentioned that you were superintendent in Camas. I have just a question. Camas has FCRC centers?
So when I left Vancouver is kind of when FCRCs were starting, and I saw how important that was to our community here. And so we started one out there, kind of modeling what was going on in Vancouver. And so I'm actually really proud that we started one out there in Camas. It's just one for the entire district, but I think it's such an important hub for community. And the relationships that are formed in our family community resource centers are unique, I think. And sometimes families feel a little more comfortable coming in there and asking for help. And so I just love what they're able to do for our students.
So now moving back to here to Vancouver Public Schools, that we have all these centers. We are here to help our families and students. There is a specific something that you want from us, something that we can help you to make your little journey you walking through a little easier, that we can help you as a FCRCs in the Vancouver Public Schools.
I think the most important thing, and we've talked about this in a lot of community forums, is the pandemic has hit everyone so hard and differently, and we've encouraged families to reach out to us and tell us what they need. we aren't able to deliver on all those needs all the time, but I hope that people feel open enough and trusting to share. And sometimes the FCRC relationship is actually a little more trusting and authentic, at least at first. And so I think the number one is to just be there and be open and listening to our families, and then amplifying those voices. And so when you're hearing themes about needs that are happening across our communities, sharing those with us as a district so that we can figure out, like, how do we address those beyond the individual amazing acts of kindness that happen, but as a system, like, how can we identify places that we can better serve? And I think that's number one. Number two would maybe just be keep doing the great work. I know during the pandemic as well, you were hubs for services and for supplies. And so that is so critical. And so continuing that, I think, is really important as well.
Yeah, and to go off a little bit of what you were mentioning about the needs of our families and some of the identifying some of those, I know that the district has really made a commitment to some of the equity work. What are some things that you're looking forward to or that you think are really working in terms of that?
So one is to just really think about what's the student experience. I think, if we think about student equity, we want each of our students to come here and feel like they're welcomed and included for who they are. Uniquely them as themselves and the culture and experiences that they bring to us. And so really tuning our ear to listen to student voice and their experience. I'm really excited. Our school board is committed to an equity policy that really, for us as staff members, defines who we are with student equity. And so they're going to go through that process this fall, and into February, I think, is when they're hoping to adopt that. So those are some things that I think are really important for us as we continue to grow in the way we serve students.
As you mentioned at the beginning, you were a teacher, you were a principal, of course you're a parent, you have students in the public schools, and now you're a superintendent. There is one thing that during that time, as a teacher, principal, and as a parent, one thing that you always wanted, that now that you are a superintendent, you can say, now I can do it.
It's such a good question. I think that each of those roles have influenced who I am, and probably the most powerful one is being a parent. Seeing it through a parent's eyes. And my youngest son he engages the world a little differently. And so he's in a wheelchair, and he's nonverbal, and he eats through a feeding tube. And so he has given me the gift of seeing things like I didn't used to see curbs. I just stepped over the curb. And now that with my son Micah, like, I notice curbs. And so I think the one thing that I would like to do as superintendent is take away barriers and take away curbs for kids, so that even if there wasn't a ramp there, that they would be able to move right up to whatever learning is going on and feel welcome and included. My hope for our community, and we are in challenging times as a community. There are people with really strong opinions, and there are frustrations, and there's anger. If there was one thing I could do, it would be bring a community together around their children. And there's so much that comes in all of that. So many things that we need to do to make that happen. But I feel like my job is to try to rally a community around our children and our amazing staff. We have so many staff members that pour their heart into this work. And so if somehow I could help that community be even stronger than it is now, that would be, I'll be very happy with that result.
So one of the things you mentioned is connecting with staff on a building level and the building level communities. Why is this important to you, and how do you fit that into your busy schedule?
Well, I think number one, whoever's closest to the students usually has the best idea of what students need. And so the more we can connect with staff that are serving students, whether it's the bus driver that's greeting them in the morning, or the coach that's serving them at the end of a long day, or through our FCRCs, it's like, what are parents telling you and what are students telling you? And so making the time to listen to those stories, I think, better informs me when I'm trying to make or bring people together to make big decisions about the district.
So one more question. If we think about in the future, right, when you are not a superintendent anymore, you finish your term, and then you can look back on the years and say, that is something that I did and I feel very proud about it. What can be?
Yeah, I think number one is that student voice would be amplified during the time I was here. And so it would just become a regular part of the practice that we do, and there would be structures in place to really allow students to share their perspective. I mean, they are our customers, and so having ways to just really listen to their experiences, I think is something that I will make sure happens when I'm here, and we've already started some of that work. The other thing is at the systems level is just organizing the collective capacity that we have as a staff. We're a large district, and I think that we've done some great things to come together collectively, but I think there's ways to improve in that. And when we improve in that, I think we're going to see better outcomes for our students and their experiences and their student learning. So when I look back on whenever my time is done, I would hope that student learning has increased because of the structures that we have put in place for our staff. We've allowed staff to be their best selves, their most talented selves, and as a result, our students have benefited from that. I also think this pandemic has taught us a lot that like time and space are maybe different moving forward. Like we've always thought of school as, 7:30 to 2:30 or something. And now maybe it doesn't have to be that way. So I would hope that maybe we're not doing school the exact same. And I don't know necessarily what that looks like, but I think that the pandemic has taught us that maybe we can be a little more flexible about how students engage. And so I would really want to capitalize on that. I think students are ready to capitalize on some of that more choice in their learning.
Yeah, well, we are very, very grateful that you are here with us, and thankful for spending the time with us, a little time with you. I just, of course, I want to ask you if there's something that you want to add, and if it's something that you specific, of course you want to talk with all the parents in Vancouver Public Schools, but if it's something specific that you want to talk to our families, our Spanish-speaking families, that you want to, mention to them.
I just want to let them know how important they are to us. You're such a large part of our community, and we love that you're in our community. You bring such a richness to our school, to our conversations. I mean, look at this experience that I get to have today because of the community that we have here. So I would want you to know how important you are and how valued are, and how important you are to the partnership with the school in serving your student. And so as students, as parents and families, you know what your students need, and we want to engage with you in developing their experiences in our schools, and we're glad that you're a part of it.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to have you, and happy to see you back to Vancouver Public Schools.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.